So Marvel just released its third film of the year, being... And after watching this movie, I actually think it's time to say that Marvel is back in their stride. Coming off of Thunderbolts, I think a lot of people are in a more positive light when it comes to the MCU, and with this being a new set of characters, story, and setting all together, I think Marvel had to deliver on this one, considering it's basically the final movie leading into Avengers Doomsday. But getting into the movie without any spoilers first, it just does everything right for the most part. From the cast, to the cinematography, to the score, to the writing, just everything in this movie was so clearly well thought out and actually shows some care in it compared to a lot of other projects we've seen in recent years. I think a lot of people, including me to some degree, were doubting the castings for most of the Fantastic Four, but coming out of the theater, I can officially say that the performances were some of the best parts of this movie. This cast chemistry is just so natural that from the first time you see all of them on screen together, you just feel like you've already seen them before and they just bounce off of each other so well. Something I really appreciated was the fact that pretty much every character shined in some way or another. I was really expecting one or two of the members of the four to shine above the others, but no, each member has their own moments or their own qualities that allows them to connect to the audience to make us care about each and every one of them. I think a lot of people are going to come out of this movie saying that Johnny is their favorite character, and that's because I think they balanced all of his traits really well within the lines of being a more light-hearted character of the group, but not making him overbearingly annoying. Johnny also has a lot to do in this movie and ends up becoming really important and integral to the plot. He also gets to show more of his heroic side in a lot of this movie, and when you combine all of these traits together, he just becomes the most likable of the four. I think Sue Storm is definitely the one with the most screen time. You could definitely tell they wanted to focus on her in this film, and I thought she was done really well almost entirely, but I'll get into that later in spoilers. The plot of this movie kind of forces her to be the main character in a way that makes her the core of this group, and I think Sue's character really shines in that light. It's very important that you get Sue Storm right in these movies because she really is the glue that brings everybody together. And when she's tossed to the side, the other three guys lose a lot of their soft spots and become more of just a bunch of charismatic dicks to each other. At least that's how it feels in the other Fantastic Four movies for me. But Sue being done right definitely enhances the rest of the cast as well as herself, rather than I feel like the rest can kind of branch through her. Now, Reed and Ben definitely could have been done better in this film, but that's not to say they were bad even in the slightest. I actually think Pedro Pascal does a phenomenal job in this role, and I think it's the story that doesn't allow him to fully encapsulate all of the traits Reed has. This film does have Reed do a lot, but the vibe of this movie is very stressful and hopeless feeling. Rather, if it was a more casual, lighthearted situation, I think we'd get to see more of Reed's charismatic side, and this leads into an issue to where Reed is just kind of stale in this film and doesn't really get to have his own moment in the movie. This movie has so much sauce and flavor, but when it comes to Reed, it's like they only seasoned one side of him. I do genuinely think though that Ben Grimm was underutilized in this film as a whole. From the trailers, I was going into this movie thinking he was going to be my favorite part about it, but that's just not the case. They don't do anything inherently wrong with him in the movie, but it's just that they didn't give him anything to do. He has scenes in this film where it looks like they're setting up something emotional with him in the future, but it doesn't lead anywhere for now, so I guess we'll just have to see later on. But besides all of these characters by themselves, one of my biggest positives coming out of the movie was the fact that we see all of them interact with one another rather than specific relationships like Reed and Sue or Johnny and Sue. We get to see every character have a relationship with another one of the four, and that just gives me a lot of confidence for the future. But I want to start getting into the plot of this movie and some of the problems I have with it, so the next chunk of this video is going to have complete spoilers. If you haven't seen the Fantastic Four yet, come back later after you've seen the film. Okay, but getting straight into my favorite part of the entire movie, I think that the middle chunk of this movie where the Fantastic Four go into space and talk to Galactus is one of the best things Marvel has done since like No Way Home. This sequence had me so locked in. It looks
fantastic.
The Silver Surfer gets some of the coolest shit to do in this scene. It also gets so creative in everything that's going on with the black hole escape from Silver Surfer, along with Sue birthing Franklin, Reed using his powers and his intellect to help Johnny and Thing steer the ship while also helping Sue deliver the baby. It just makes for such an engaging scene and was one of my favorite sequences in all of Marvel. Except I think the CGI baby did take me out a bit, but it wasn't too egregious and the rest of the film looks so amazing. I just have to cancel cancel it out. I also want to point out that the score and music in this film is so different and retro, but it's one of the best scores in the entire MCU. I really hope we get to see more music like this in the future. But getting into my main issues with the film, there's 3 things that all took me out of the movie, and they all have to do with the ending. Number 1, I don't feel like the Silver Surfer's heroic moment at the end was earned. Number 2, I really don't like that Sue Storm is manhandling Galactus for like 5 straight minutes in the climax of the movie. And number 3, I hate, and I mean absolutely hate, that the fact that Sue dies and then Franklin brings her back. All 3 of these issues had me completely lost in the ending of the film and bogged down the movie quite a lot for me. I think everything to do with these 3 issues combines the feeling of convenience, campiness, and just unearned. And for the ending of the movie to have all of that, I think hurts it a lot. I don't feel that Silver Surfer's heroic moment is earned because yes, Johnny has been translating her language throughout the movie, but even after he gets through to her emotions, it just feels like too quick of a turnaround, especially if we don't end up seeing her for the next 30 minutes after that interaction. She knows what she's been doing for however long. She's been helping Galactus. I don't think what Johnny does to her should have really had that much of an impact yet. It should have been more of a gradual, slow build, but it's just my opinion. Maybe on rewatch I'll appreciate it more. The second issue, though, that I have being Sue's power scaling. I'm willing to hear out and give grace considering Galactus holding Franklin probably unlocks some ungodly motherly power that she can only tap into in a situation like this. But this being the first time we see Sue and Galactus at all makes it just kind of feel ridiculous that she can push down this force of nature for multiple minutes straight. And yes, it does cost her life, which I also hate, but I think it could have just been done better. I don't know, maybe just move the push part of the movie closer to the black hole so it's one big push or something instead of a 5-minute sequence. Tying into the last point as well, I think Sue's death and Franklin bringing her back just didn't really work for me. I just felt that it was too campy for me. The scene goes on way too long with trying to make us genuinely feel emotional for her by Reed, Johnny, and Ben all around her. But I don't know, I was just sitting in the theater not surprised at all, because regardless of the multiversal plot lines, we know they're not going to kill off one of the main 4, let alone in the first film. I don't know, it all just kind of felt cliche and cheap to me, and I wish the ending was done a little differently, but overall the movie was
fantastic.
And it sets up the MCU in a pretty interesting way. I definitely think Marvel is prioritizing quality over quantity at this point, and if we can keep this up, we might just have a pretty solid phase. 8.5 out of 10. Fantastic Four is just such a strong film all throughout, but not without problems. I do think that my problems will probably become less of an issue on rewatch. Regardless though, it has some of the highest highs any Marvel movie has had in years, and if Marvel can keep this momentum going, then we'll be eating good from this point forward. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, and I want to hear what your guys' opinions are on this movie down in the comments.